It looks like you've seen a ghost. It's all right, Jeff. Jeannie can't hear or see me. Nobody can. Only you, Jeff. Only you. Well, thank you for joining me on Marty Bucko for this talk on Marshall and Snellgrove deceased. That's a joke. Marshall and Snellgrove deceased department store. You may now know it as Debenhams. Seriously, this talk on Randall and Hopkirk, deceased and decoded, is quite dear to my heart because growing up, it was one of my favourite TV programmes, along with the Avengers, and I've unearthed, yes, some startling things, particularly in relation to Jeff Pratt's death, who played Mike Pratt's death, rather, who played Jeff Randall. But first, before we begin, because there's a lot of stuff to bring out, before we begin, just a bit of brief background on the TV series itself, because I can't take for granted that people actually know what I'm talking about. So, just to set the stage, right, Randall and Hopkirk, Deceased, was a British TV series that aired on TV in 1969 and 1970. I was 8 to 9 years old at the time. It ran for one season and had 26 episodes. It's just starting to rain, lash it down. But that's okay, we'll carry on. It became very popular, but they'd moved on to do other things. So they only made the 26 episodes. It was redone with Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer in 2000 and 2001, and that was a further 13 episodes. So the main guy who put the thumbs up for this production to go ahead was Lou Grade, or Sir Lou Grade, or Baron Lou Grade. Dennis Spooner was the creator, Monty Bierman the producer, and various people directed. Now, the principal characters in it were Mike Pratt, who played Jeff Randall, Kenneth Cope, who played Marty Hopkirk, and Andre Annette. Annette Andre, was it? Yes, Annette Andre played Jean, or Jeannie, as she was referred to throughout the episodes. I'll just let a few of the other pictures. All these pictures here were taken, photographs from this book, which was about the only book I could find on Randall and Hopkirk. All the material I'm presenting to you today is original Marty Bucko research. I've not heard anyone do a talk on this. So it's all my responsibility, whether it's good or bad. I'll let the people judge. Yeah, so the TV series, as I say, it is a private investigators in partnership, Jeff Randall and Marty Hopkirk, and Marty gets killed in the first episode, but he is there as a ghost throughout all the episodes. Marty appears only to Jeff that's just the way it's presented in the TV program. His reasoning in doing this is that if he can help Jeff with cases, solving them with his help, getting to places and seeing things, observing things that wouldn't normally be the case, then Jeannie can be provided for, and he will take her on as the secretary, and also her bills will be met. So it's very much a sort of, it's a family thing. People can watch it. There is nothing other than certain weird type of things now and then. So the principle is only Jeff can see Marty. However, on the odd occasion, a clairvoyant, a psychic, the odd animal, a dog, or even someone who's had too much to drink may see him at times, but it's to Jeff, basically. So let's begin. Let's get into what sparked my interest. I got the Blu-ray set of the original, as I said, that aired in 1969-70, 26 episodes, and I also got the 2 seasons of 6 and 7 episodes, and I've watched all of them all the way through in producing this talk. This isn't the sort of talk you can just knock out off the top of your head. I've done a lot of thought, a lot of research, a lot of work on it to present this talk. So, the thing that leapt out at me to begin with then was Jeff Randall's white Vauxhall Victor car that appears in, I would say, all of them except for about 6 or 7 episodes near the end, where the number plate is slightly changed by 1 letter. This is the number plate that appears throughout the majority, from the beginning going through. Now, let's decode this, and on the basis that, as for those who have seen before, I'm looking for things of colours, clues, codes, numbers, numerology. The people behind all these things, this cabal, this cult, they use these things and take them very seriously indeed. Although we may not, they do. So we've got 996F. Let's begin here first. 996F. Flip the 9s, and you've got 2 6s. F is the 6th letter of the alphabet. There's another 6. Here you've got R is 18, X is 24, D is 4, which individually comes to 19. 1 and 9 is 10. And if you add them together, the numbers, 18, 24, 4, you get 46. 46, take away 10, and that leaves you 36. 3 6 is 666. So we've got a number plate of 666, 6666. Now that should get our attention to begin with, that something isn't quite as it appears. There's a red Mini car that Jean and Marty drive, and it becomes Jeannie's after the death of Marty. It's a red Mini. Now this Mini also crops up in an episode of The Saint in 1968, an episode of Department S in 1969, and it's driven by Tony Curtis' character Danny Wilde in one episode of The Persuaders in 1970. The number plate CBP 9696G. I looked at this, I couldn't fathom anything particular, but it's sitting there right in your face anyway. It's 666, flip the 9 and you're back to 3 6s. Oops, sorry, something's just flown around. Okay, we're going to look at the name of the character of Jeff Randall, played by Mike Pratt. That's the numerical value of each letter. Individually, they come to 44. Together, they come to 89. 89 take away 44 equals 45. What's significant about 45? 45 is the age Mike Pratt was when he died, 45 years old. His full name, he went by the name of Mike Pratt, but his full name was Michael John Pratt. Individually, added up, 74. Together, by together I mean the big numbers, adding 10, 15, 8, 14, whereas individually you're going 1, add 3, add 9, add 3, etc. 173. 173, take away 74, gives you 99, flip the 9s and you've got 2 6s again. Mike Pratt died July the 10th, 1976. He died exactly 6 years after the last episode was screened in 1970. And according to this book, on page 45, this has a purple colour, the Phoenician colour, the main colour, Tiffany blue's the other one. On page 45, the age he was when he died, it said he had been ill for some time and was finally admitted to hospital in January 1976. 6 months later, they actually state another 6. 6 months later, the battle against lung cancer proved one fight too many for Mike Pratt. Now, it is fair to say he really did smoke a lot in the episodes. It seems he was a bit like Humphrey Bogart, who was puffing away at cigarettes all the time, and he may well have had lung cancer. I'm just looking at, did he die of it or with it? Or did he die of something else, even though he may have had it or may not have had it? The point is, they highlight the fact 6 months after being admitted to hospital, then he died. And he died 6 years after the last episode. So I've been over that one. Oh, the funeral service. He died on July the 10th, 1976. The funeral service was July the 15th, 1976. July is the 7th month. 15, 1976. Individually it comes to 36, 3 6s, 666. This is heavy duty stuff, isn't it? Kenneth Cope. Kenneth Cope. Individually, the letters come to this, 53. Together, 116. Take away 53 from 116, you got 63, 3 6s, 666. Marty Hopkirk's name. Individually, it comes to 66. Together, 165. 165, take away the 66, gives you 99. Flip them. You got 2 more 66s, 6666. Okay. In the TV series, there's a number of sets that are used over and over again. We've got Jeff's bedroom, and even on the book cover, you've got Jeff in his apartment. Jeff's apartment, his living room, bedroom are used quite a bit because Marty often turns up at strange times to speak to him. That's in the office of the workplace. So I want to have a look at this picture here for a minute. This is Jeff's bedroom. Over his bed, I noticed a number of things. The colours are speaking, particularly in relation to the orange and gold, which is in all that section there, although the picture may be a little bit dull, which is in connection with the Egyptian sun god Ra and the various Egyptian mysteries that this cult are very seriously into. More on that later. This picture that you can't see very clearly is a head and shoulders. It's got all the purple, the Tiffany blue and the orange. But more than that, this is the picture I'm really looking at here over Jeff's bed. It's the Hindu god Shiva, the destroyer. This very same picture that's over Jeff's bed is outside CERN that they made, where the Hadron Collider is. Would you want that over your bed? Leave it with you. There's an episode called When the Spirit Moves You, where the villains in their particular apartment, it takes you in there and it shows you a collage of colour on the wall in the shape of a pyramid. And it's got all the colours there, the purple, the Tiffany blue, as well as the gold and the orange. It's all there in that clip to look at. There's an episode called A Disturbing Case. There's robbers with a clinic that are hypnotising people to hand over their valuables. In this particular place, the number is 6 on the door, and there's a robbery takes place in a house, and they've hypnotised somebody to hand over their stuff. And there's a clock on a table, like a big clock, that is reading 9. It looks like it's 9:11, although it's a bit distant. I was trying to pick it out. I'd say it's 9:11. And the very next day, when the police come, in the episode, it's frozen on 9:11 as well. It's not moved. The clock hasn't moved. There's a character in this episode called Witty, which maybe I'm reading a bit too much into things. But nevertheless, he's someone who means something to English people who have been through the Rona from the British government, and these people who have been trotted out to speak to the public. And there's also a character called Smart, and again, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but Smart, everything is smart. And Jeff ends up getting 2 needlecraft injections that knock him out by the villain in this episode. There's another episode called Who Killed Cock Robin? Maybe it should have been Who Killed Mike Pratt or Jeff Randall. Jeff's in a mansion house with a large aviary of birds. And he makes the point of pointing out, after looking round for a period, he says there's 33 breeds of bird. Now he's specified that number and he's spoken it out. 33 is highlighted here. And we know what that stands for and who's involved with that. And also there's a character called Howie in it, which reminds me of the Edward Wood character, Sergeant Howie, who was offered up in sacrifice in The Wicker Man. Although, in fairness, that film was made about 3 years after this episode. Can they work things even with episodes that they're going to do in the future and work them in? It's possible. So, are there any other clues in plain sight before our eyes? Most of us will be familiar with the Georgia Guidestones, that things were engraved in a monument in Georgia related to reducing the Earth's population to 500 million in accordance and balance with nature. These things were blown up in the end. Maybe the Cabal had no further use for them and they were knocked down. But they stood there for quite a period of time. Is there anything engraved? Well, I would suggest there is. I would suggest in Marty Hopkirk's grave. Now, there was filming done in various cemeteries. The actual grave of Marty was done in a studio to make it look like an outdoor graveyard, because there was another grave to the side of Marty's. I'll come to that in a minute, but let's look at the simple inscription. In loving memory, Marty Hopkirk, faithful unto death. Now, at first glance, there's nothing there at all that would catch you to think, is there something to be seen in that? Well, there is. And it's this expression here, faithful unto death. Now, if I asked you to think on where does that expression occur, faithful unto death, you'd probably think, well, it's something we sort of use, but where has it come from? Where was it first written? Well, it's a biblical passage. And I was familiar with it. I didn't even have to look it up. I knew it. So I'm going to read it to you. It appears in the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, chapter 2, verse 10. Now, some may say, well, would this evil pyramid of evil, this dark cabal, would they quote the Bible or make you want to look at the Bible? Well, the point is they've done it. I think they've done it there. Put it there there's a clue, there's something there. And remember, the devil came to tempt Jesus as well. He didn't mind quoting the Bible or reading the Bible to Jesus. He often did it out of context and in a wrong way. And Jesus came back with it is written as well. But here's the point. So I'm going to read it in its context first. 3 verses, so you get the context. Now, what I'm saying is, of course, this has nothing to do with Randall and Hopkirk. God isn't talking about Randall and Hopkirk. I'm making a point. They've pointed us faithful unto death. So the context is Jesus speaking to 7 churches, the good things to do, the bad things to do, to commend them on the good points, to reprove them, correct them on the bad points. So he's addressing, in verse 8, the church at Smyrna. And I'll just read it through and then comment. And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know your works and tribulation and poverty, but you're rich. I know the blasphemy of them which say they're Jews and are not, but of the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison that you may be tried. You shall have tribulation 10 days. Here it comes. Be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give you a crown of life. That's where it appears. Revelation chapter 2, verse 10, and that's the context. So, faithful unto death. Well, first of all, this speaks to me here. These things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. Marty was dead, but he's alive. He's in the first episode and he's in the last episode. The first and the last. Revelation 2:10. 2 10s are 20. The year of the Rona. And the crown. The corona crown is mentioned. The corona is mentioned. Crown of life. Revelation 2:10. 2 10s are 20. He that is dead and is alive. The crown. And even on the same page I'm looking at, when he speaks to the next one, he says to the Sardis church, he says, there's a few names in Sardis which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white. Oh dear mate. So, now, there. That's it. When it opens up...
May I interject?
Yeah, please do.
There's a big one that you missed there.
Go on. Go on. Thanks, Phil. Thanks for sharing.
You got the upside down pentagram, which is Baphomet.
Yes. It's an occult TV programme. You're dealing with things. I think the Cabal are very comfortable, with comedy because it relaxes people. And they feel this is light-hearted, it's tongue-in-cheek, it is comedy, and they're happy with it. It relaxes people far more sometimes than serious stuff. Good point. It is, as I say, an occult TV series, really, in the things that they touch on. Okay, so brilliant. So in the TV series, when it begins, the episode begins, and the music starts, and there's clips of different things. There's always a clip that will take you to the grave, and Jeannie and Jeff, they're standing there at Marty's grave, and Marty's standing to the side, smiling with affection at his friend and his dear wife. And to the side of Marty, there is a grave that is displayed with a name on it. Now, this is filmed in the studio, so they've put this name on. Sorry, Phil. They've put the name on the gravestone, and the name reads Joseph Tozer. Now, at first glance, for many of us, it may mean absolutely nothing whatsoever. And I tried to decode that. I tried to think what it meant, and I came to the conclusions. They've quoted us the Bible to show us Revelation 2:10, if I'm on the correct track, in the spirit of Marty Hopkirk and Jeff Randall solving the case. They've showed us in stone this, the Bible. So Joseph, let's split the names into two. Joseph from the Bible. Joseph was the son of Jacob, who became Israel, who was his favourite son, the coat of many colours. Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt. We're back into Egypt, where the Cabal like to go. Remember, this group are Crowleyites. They're into the ancient Egyptian mysteries, dark occultists, Luciferians, Satanists, the religion of Thelema, of Aleister Crowley, who's into all the Egyptian mysteries and the gods and the sun god and all the other stuff. So Jacob ends up in Egypt at the right hand of Pharaoh, in charge, because he's got wisdom and God's put him there. Anything else about Joseph? Well, he died. When he died, they buried him in Egypt. But when God raised up Moses and Aaron to bring them, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt into the land of Canaan, they dug up the bones of Joseph and carted him off and reburied him in the land. Now, just remember that a second. Now we come to Tozer. This isn't a name necessarily most people would catch on to, but if you are a Bible believer who is reasonably mature, you've been around a while, you've read books, and you're familiar with authors, you would know of, and I certainly know of him, A.W. Tozer, Aidan Wilson Tozer, an American preacher who was a famous conference speaker, writer, pastor, and just a nice sort of guy. He was with the Christian Missionary Alliance for 44 years, which is the kill number. 44. And he was a pastor in different a pastor within the denominational setup of different churches for exactly 33 years. Now, I'm not suggesting he was a Freemason, but It looks like they may have picked this name, if indeed they have picked it, and it's not just my imagination, that they're highlighting something. Also, he was 66 years old when he died. 44 years overall in the Christian Missionary Alliance, 33 of them as a pastor at different churches. That's all significant and interesting. And there's something more. Remember what I said about Joseph? He was buried and they carted his bones off. Well, they've done with Aidan Wilson Tozer. He was buried in Chicago, his last, Chicago, Illinois. And his family decided to dig him up and take his bones back to his birthplace in Akron, Ohio. So he too had his bones taken up and moved to his original place of growing up. Now, there is an episode in the original series called Somebody Just Walked Over My Grave. And Marty goes to Jeff's apartment when he's asleep, and he says, Jeff, wake up. What is it? He says, someone's messing about with my grave. He says, Jeff, somebody's fiddling about with it. They've dug it all around it. Come on, go out and see what's going on. Get down to my grave. Oh, and so reluctantly he goes down. Well, the episode has a funeral colour in it that goes by. And it's number 772 CYV. Individually, that comes to 30. Together, it comes to 66. 66, take away the 30, is 36. 36 is 666, but also you got the 66 as well, anyway, together. Okay. Those are the main points on the 26 episodes. I'm sure there's things I've missed. I'm sure others could find other things, but that's what I saw. That's what I looked at and present to the viewers, the things I've seen. So let's come to just a few words on the remake in 2000 and 2001 with the comedian partnership of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. Vic Reeves playing Marty Hopkirk, Bob Mortimer playing Jeff Randall, and Amelia Fox playing Jean or Jeannie. Oh, yes, there was one more thing. I wanted to mention. On that episode of somebody walking over my grave, it was unusual because Marty wanted in the episode to go and watch a football match. He wanted to clear off to see England play Germany, and he did do in the midst of everything that was going on. And I thought, what significance does this have? Because the game that he was looking at, now remember this was 1969-ish when it was filmed, and the game that they're watching is the World Cup final from 1966. 1966. Flip the 9 and you've got 666. And the score was 4-2 to England, which comes to 6. And also, in this series, it's brought out the surname of Jeannie. She's only referred to in this series as Jean or Jeannie or Mrs. Hopkirk or Miss Hopkirk or however she's called after the death of Marty. But the name that comes out, she's called by surname, is Hurst. And Jeff Hurst was the one who scored the hat-trick for the winning World Cup victory of England over Germany in 1966. And so they made out it was like two games, not the World Cup final, but home at Wembley and away in Munich, Germany. So he was at both. He went to both games, but it was actually I spotted it a mile off because I was familiar with the game. It was the 1966 World Cup final that they were showing. But they're pointing us to it for some reason. It had not a lot to do with the subject of the episode, but they're pointing you, 1966, 666, Jeff Hurst. Hurst is similar to a funeral hearse. Maybe I'm seeing too much, but it's all there. You all check it out. It's all there, what I'm saying. I'm glad I remembered that little bit to add into it. Okay, so you've got the principal characters, Vic Reeves, Bob Mortimer, Amelia Fox, and also Tom Baker crops up in it, who used to be in Doctor Who. He was one of the doctors. And the Who is often referred to as the World Health Organization as well, isn't it? Now, in this, he poses as like a spirit that's teaching Marty in the spirit world to do different things. But he has on these robes. You know how the Pope is dressed in white and he has these big flaps over his shoulder. And he was walking around in these things, almost like the Pope, but without his skull cap on. I just thought it looked slightly popish in how he was dressed and presented, whereas Marty was in his white suit. Whereas he was more like the Pope, maybe because he's teaching in a teaching capacity. But it did look a little bit odd. There was a reference, I think it was the first episode, to a building that was number 13 Cope House, which is a bit of a reference back to the original Marty. Kenneth Cope. So they're just having a little, either a laugh or a little something. And they did put a few people who cropped up in the original episode, just in bit parts, cropping up in those episodes. Thoughts as a whole upon the well, it was interesting. I thought they played very well. They're quite funny, but as time moves on, I think sometimes things degenerate a bit, and it was far darker in places than the original, although this is dark as well, as Phil's pointed out. There's darkness, it's a veneer of comedy and family entertainment, but there is dark stuff underneath. But this is far darker as it comes out, but well made, obviously, and some people would like the special effects and different things. Okay. Now, what I found really interesting amongst these 13 episodes was the frequent reference to Jeff being offered up in sacrifice. That comes out again, and again. There's one episode where people, younger people, are at a public school. And there is sacrifice going on. A teacher has been beheaded and killed. There's all sorts of hoods and robes and candles and sacrifice. Jeff and Jeannie go to find out what's going on, and he almost ends up getting sacrificed himself. The head teacher says to all they're older children. They're not like little people, but they're older, and he addresses them in assembly, and he says, he addresses them as, go to your classes and prepare for power. And these elite children, groomed to take positions of power in the world, made me think of the bloodlines and the schools they go to and what goes on. In the 6th episode, 6th of the new series, there's a weird town that has made a pact with the devil, and Jeff is to be offered up in sacrifice. In this case, he's going to be burnt at the stake. And this is a direct quote from it. We're going to kill you and eat you. I mean, do you see how far it's come from the original in the things that they're saying? In another episode called Oh Happy Isle, a reference is made again to the film The Wicker Man. Jeff is investigating a missing person on a Scottish island, reworking of that plot really, where the guy over the island, the laird as he's called, he owns everything, and they're into pagan rules, customs, people dress in strange ways when these sacrifices are happening. And actually this highlighted to me when me and Janie we're in August now of 2023. We've just not long been back from Padstow in Cornwall. We went into Padstow Museum, and you could click on a TV screen which showed you the May Day celebrations. And May Day is one of the chief occultic feast festivals, and there's a festival that goes on. You could watch them in different years, and there's a big thing they put on this person's head, and they all gyrate around this thing, and they're dancing around in these pagan way, basically. And it made me think back to the Wicker Man, that you've now gone back into time. They're doing strange things, and so all this was going on, and then in this episode, Marty turns up in the castle of the laird, and he's dancing about on a black and white checkerboard, which reminded me of Prime Minister Johnson's dancing when the Divock 91, where he was dancing about on black and white. And the laird says, if only there were less people in the world, how much more happier we would be. How do you reduce the population without harming anyone? You can't make an omelette without breaking an egg. How do you stop the relentless flow of humanity, Jeff, without resorting to violence? Well, you stop them from multiplying, Jeannie says. Exactly, the laird says. Again, Jeff is offered up in sacrifice, and at the end of the episode, reference is made to The Wicker Man by Marty, and he says, oh, Jeff, you're really lucky, because in the film he got killed, the main character. In another episode called The Glorious Butranek, it is set in Latvia, and somebody they know has disappeared, so they go over there, all three of them, and it's a pagan cult that's offering up people in sacrifice, and again Jeff is captured to be offered up. And the quote is, "Always, the glorious Butranek always needs fresh blood, and the more souls we can send to him, the better." And even when an episode is not totally centred on sacrifice, there's a reference made in a museum by a museum curator speaking to Jeff, ritual, this person, this exhibit is died in ritual sacrifice, and he brings his thumb across his throat like the Freemasons do in their ritual. And that was called The Revenge of the Bug People. In an episode of Paranoia, it's called, there is outright mocking conspiracy theorists, and in labelling Christians as terrorists. In an episode, Whatever Possessed You, an interesting quote, when somebody sneezes, it said, is it viral? You know, one of these viruses, is it one of those that turn your brain into porridge? And in the last episode, two can play that game. This was an unusual episode. They needed 26 episodes to sell to the United States. They couldn't give them 25. In the last episode, Jeff, this is as it's stated in the official report on it, he was celebrating his birthday, and they all went back to his apartment to have drinks, and he'd forgot his keys. So one of the people shimmied up the drain pipe and got the keys, opened the door. But then Jeff says, oh, I can do that as well. He went up and fell 20 foot and broke both legs. So the last episode, he really has broken legs here. He really is on a hospital bed, though in a film studio. And there are real nurses in attendance to him. So this created terrible problems for the directors and everyone. They had to get together, and so they figured it out that Marty would just visit Jeff. They'd be talking on cases Marty had solved when he was alive, and where he felt he'd done a better job than Jeff. So, and then he keeps reporting back. So it was an unusual, odd episode. And I was trying to figure out, is there any significance? Was this just something that happened? There's no significance in it at all. What do the two legs mean? What if there is a significance? There probably isn't. It probably was, he was doing that and fell. But let's just say that there is a significance. What would we come up with? I don't know. Is it the twin towers? Is it two legs? Do they represent something? The book of Daniel in the Old Testament speaks of Daniel the prophet, where he saw the vision of the head of gold and the body of a certain colour, silver and bronze, the legs meaning the different empires and things. I don't know what it means. Maybe there's no significance. But when we come to the last episode, it's a similar thing. Jeff, has his legs in plaster. It's just he's there again, and this time he's fell. He has a neck brace on in the last episode, Jeff, and his arm in plaster and that from falling 30 feet on concrete. This is according to that. So the last. To finish with, there's an episode about a psychopath who knows Jeff from school, whose dad owned a department store called Boyle's, which is now derelict, but he uses for his psychopathic activity. And it finishes, the last episode finishes with Jeff and Gina and Marty leaving the department store, only to find their car has been stolen. And Marty says to Jeff, shouldn't we report this, Jeff? Shouldn't we report it? And that's it. That's how it all finishes. Now, the conclusion of all this, I leave people to come to their own conclusions. We are from when it is reported that Jeff, or rather Mike Pratt, died in 1976 to 2020 is 44 years. It's the kill number. Is it a ritual sacrifice? I know what I think. If it's not, there's a phenomenal amount of coincidence here. And I don't believe anything can be achieved in this. It can't go anywhere, can it? No one knows who's done anything. We may speculate. Secret societies, the Masons may have had their hand in it with the numbers that were being used. Anyone who doubts in these days that these things go on, because it is staggering to get your mind around that they could actually do these sort of things, should think no further than looking at things in our days. Do we really believe that people like the singer, like George Michael, say, just happened to die on Christmas Day of a heart attack, and his song, Last Christmas I Gave You My Heart? You know, or Michael Jackson, did he really just die through natural means? What about Prince in the lift? He'd done a song on an elevator, he's found dead in an elevator. Or Whitney Houston in the bathtub. Do we really believe these things? And even in recent days, like 2022, the actress Anne Heck We saw the clips on TV. She's been in a car crash, apparently. And suddenly, this ambulance is there with number 63 on the ambulance, and she's trying to stand up and stands up, and they don't comfort her. They throw her down and chuck her in the back of the vehicle. They go off, take her away, and then before long they've cremated her and she's dead. And that's the last we hear of her. I mean, it goes on. I'm not suggesting they necessarily put on a slab and like the thing, and although it could happen. But I leave these thoughts with you all, and what do you think? So, be seeing you.